What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I want to talk to you guys about the iBasso Nunchaku. I can't help but do the nunchuck move when I say that, because this is a fun, fantastic device from iBasso. This retails in at $299, at least right now. What day, what time is it, right? Because we have no idea what tariffs are going to do, but yeah, $299 right now is what you can purchase the Nunchaku for. You will get it in either silver or red, and you will get it with this yellow case that you're seeing this Nunchaku in right now. So you do get a couple of different options for the same price on that. I do want to send a huge thank you to iBasso, because they sent this out a couple of months ago now, right after Cayin New York, so that I could get extended listening time with this with all different IEMs and headphones. You have heard me shout this thing out a lot if you guys have been following along in my videos, and if you haven't, I'm a little hurt right now, but please do that after this video. So yeah, guys, I just have so much to say about this, and I should probably shut up and start doing that. But I do want to give you an overview of what to expect on this video. So obviously I'm going to talk about this device. I am going to go through the unbox and features. I'm also going to talk about the functionality of this volume button and volume knob that we're seeing here. I'm also going to give you the sound synergy that is to be expected with both the tube and the solid state modes that you get out of this amp, and a comparison to the WooTube Mini. And guys, I'm going to mention the Tube Mini a lot in this video because I think a lot of people want to know how this compares to that. And yeah, it is towards the end of the video, but please don't skip ahead. Watch it all first, and then I'll wrap things up at the very end as I typically do. So inside the box of the Nunchaku here, as I said, it's going to be in either silver or red, and it will have the yellow protective case here that does extend a little bit over the device because there is glass that is on both sides of this and an OLED screen here. You're also going to get two different cable connections. You'll have a USB-C to USB-C cable, and you'll have a USB-C to Lightning cable. Both are about 3 inches in length. That'll take care of both Android and Apple users. You're also going to get a USB-C to USB-A adapter so that you can plug this into things like a PC or a laptop, for example. And then lastly, you will get an instruction booklet to explain the functionality of the Nunchaku as well. So the first thing is, this is very power efficient thanks to the in-house developed FPGA. It uses just 120 milliamps per 5 volts for tube mode and 100 milliamps in class AB mode or solid state mode. So very energy efficient, especially for a tube dongle DAC, which is going to be very nice for battery drain on phones, laptops, and things like that. Then the Nunchaku incorporates 2 Raytheon JAN 6418 vacuum tubes. Now, what's interesting to note here is it's the same vacuum tubes that we find on the Tube Mini, again, that I'm going to mention a lot throughout this video, but the way they implement them is a little bit different. They are actually elevated within the unit here of the Nunchaku thanks to a pour-on system. Now, this pour-on system has it so that they don't bump into edges, things like that. It isolates noise, isolates vibration, and doesn't allow a lot of microphonics and things to happen, so that you can literally walk around and carry this thing, and you're not going to get constant ringing all the time like you would on the Tube Mini, for instance. Don't get me wrong, you're going to get some, but that system is really well developed with an Nunchaku. Now, each set of tubes goes through an APX 555 testing phase that will ensure you get a matched set with your Nunchaku, and they only test 50 tubes a day is what iBasso is saying on their site. So that's pretty impressive as well, again, to make sure that you get a matching set. Which, by the way, you will know when the tubes are on because you will see the tube glow on the other side of the OLED screen, and then when you have it switched to AV mode, you won't see anything at all. So that's a really quick visual indicator to know whether you're using tube mode or not. Now, speaking of the screen is a 0.96 inch OLED screen that contains some basic information. So you're not going to get like track playing or, you know, being able to skip a track forward, backward. None of that's going to be a function. It's going to be more like bitrate, volume, you know, again, basic info. Now, for the Class AB side, the solid state side, the Nunchaku utilizes 4 TI high performance op amps and 4 BUF 634A buffers into this tiny little compact unit. And all of this is being fed by the Cirrus Logic CS43198 DAC chip, which is a pretty high-end Cirrus Logic DAC chip, and it can decode up to 512 native DSD and PCM of 32-bit and 768 kilohertz. So pretty fantastic numbers from the DAC side of things. Now, one of the other ways the Nunchaku reduces noise is by utilizing the JRC hardware volume control. Now, let me explain this the best I can. So basically, this makes sure that the DAC is operating at the max voltage that it can, and then that will go through the tube stage, and then that will go through the volume control. Now, basically what that means is that when you're turning down the volume, it actually reduces noise as you lower the volume, so you're not picking that up as you're listening to a quieter level. It is a very nice implementation, and I can speak firsthand when I've listened to this that it does indeed work extremely well. As far as power goes, the 3.5 out will do a maximum of 150 milliwatts, and that is through the tube stage at 32 ohms. And it'll do 125 milliwatts max output, and that is through the Class AB or solid state stage. Now for the 4.4, you're gonna get a little bit more there, and it's gonna go up to 525 milliwatts out of the tube stage, and then it's gonna go up to 450 milliwatts out of the solid state. Now those don't sound like huge numbers, don't get me wrong, but that's important to note for later on. Now, as far as voltage output goes, out of the 3.5, the max voltage you're gonna get is 2.25 volts, and that's if you're going high gain, whereas the 4.4 is gonna get you over 4 volts if you're going high gain out of the tube stage. Now, if you're going out of the solid state stage, it's kind of more of the natural numbers you might be used to hearing. 2 volts out of unbalanced, 4 volts out of balanced. And again, that's gonna be out of high gain. So think of situations where you may want to use this to power an external device, an external amp, something like that, which I honestly didn't do, but that's where those numbers come in handy to know. All right, so and before we move on, one quick note on the build. First of all, this is 50 grams of weight, and the DC Elite is 60 grams of weight. The difference here, this is titanium, this is aluminum. The Nunchaku is CNC machined aluminum, and I gotta say guys, there's no rough edges on this, just like the DC Elite. And this is really just an engineering marvel. I love the build quality of iBasso products that I've had in, and I love the build quality of the Nunchaku. By the way, it does have that OLED screen, as I said, and it is not, I didn't see anything about Gorilla Glass or anything like that used, but thankfully the case has a bevel over it, so you're not going to rub the screen directly on a desk, but I wouldn't recommend doing that when you put this down, just because you could scratch the glass on the screen of either the OLED side or the side that's got the tubes. Hey guys, it's that time of the video again where I remind you to like videos like this one if you do like them, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and support me along the way. I also have a Patreon. If you'd like to join that, become a member, get in on my Telegram chat. You can get some sneak peeks of some projects that I am working on, and that helps to further fund this channel. And I do want to thank all of my Patreon subscribers so far for all of your support. All right, guys, let's get back to the video. All right, so one of the first things I recommend doing if you get the Nunchaku is to upgrade the firmware. Now, a couple of important things to note here. First, if you get the app for this, it is only going to be for Android phones because it's an Android APK app that you can download through iBasso site. Fortunately, they don't have anything for iPhones as of yet. However, to upgrade the firmware, you would go to their website and download first the Windows driver and then the Windows executable file, and that will allow you to upgrade the firmware of the Nunchaku. Why is that important? Well, the latest firmware that is on their site is actually a stability issue fix for Apple phones. So that's why it's always important, guys, to check for firmware updates, because there's going to be enhancements and things that you're going to want to check out. And I definitely recommend doing that. Also, if you do decide to get the app, which is not needed, by the way, for the Nunchaku, on an Android phone, get it from the website. You can find it on the Google Play Store, but I promise you, you will have issues. It'll have issues with either music players like I did with Tidal, or it just won't function correctly. So make sure to update it and to download it through iBasso site. All right, so going through the functionality of the Nunchaku, the first thing I will tell you is that the volume knob on here is also a volume button. You hold the button in and that will take you through the menu of the Nunchaku. So let's go through this really quick. The first thing you're gonna see in the menu is for filters. There is slow, fast, low latency slow, low latency fast, and then NOS, or non-oversampling. There's also the option to toggle on or off a high pass filter. You'll get to select the low gain or the high gain, and then you'll get to choose the balance level. So you can adjust it from left to right for the sound of the music that you're playing. Honestly, I think this is a very handy feature to have for a lot of different use cases, so I was glad to see that. Next up is where you'll be able to toggle on or off the SPDIF mode. If you're trying to listen to music and you don't have this plugged into anything else externally and you don't hear music, that's probably because you got this toggled on. Next up is the tube or AB mode, just like it sounds. Then there's a screen rotation mode, which is pretty handy. So in its normal orientation, the screen, when you look at it, will be a certain way, but if you flip it upside down and you want to flip the screen upside down, this toggle will do that for you. Then you'll see an option to select whether volume is always on or just on the small part of the screen. Then you're going to see the backlight setting, just like we see in anything with phones, etc., where you can have this on for unlimited time or down to just a few seconds, depending on what you want to do. And lastly, there is going to be the firmware version that you're on. And that's it, guys. And that is also in the app. Nothing extra additional is in the app, which is why I said you really don't need the app if you don't want it. So Apple users, take a sigh of relief. All right, now what you've all been waiting for, I would imagine, is, well, how does this thing make your gear sound? Well, there's a little bit of an analogy that I'd like to use here, guys, and that basically the Nunchaku will turn your digital music into this. Well, not this. This is actually a coaster, but you kind of get the idea. This is a vinyl coaster. It's pretty cool too. This is a vinyl coaster. So basically, this will make your music more analog, and it really does. That is no joke, guys, no exaggeration. I love the sound flavor that tube mode will put on this. It will add some weight to the low end, some fluidity there, I should say. It'll give the mids a little bit of a lush nature to them. And then that top end is going to be ever so slightly rolled off and tamed. And it's just not going to be overly spicy, which is really nice if you have a headphone or IM that you want to kind of tame that part of it. A perfect example is the recent Grado headphone that I reviewed. That was the HP100 SE. Check out that video if you get a chance to, by the way. This was a fantastic and wonderful pairing for an on-the-go setup with that headphone because it did tame that top end and made it more enjoyable. Gave it a little bit more weightiness to that low end. But it didn't stop there, guys. 4 IEMs does the same thing. So the Nunchaku works so well with so many different IEMs. I have plugged in a countless IEMs and honestly never had an issue where I thought something was too overly sensitive. All right, guys, so I feel like I owe a little bit of clarification on that statement I just made. And I don't want to set anybody astray to think this thing is just dead quiet no matter what, because if you're listening to it and you have it sitting on a table like this, the interference that you're getting from your phone definitely could pass through to the Nunchaku. And in fact, when you're adjusting the volume on this, when you're playing music, you're really not going to hear any interference, but perhaps when you're adjusting the volume for a second, you may hear some background static, or if you go to play and pause your music or skip a track, you may hear some of that background static noise. And that's what I'm referring to. You don't hear it during playback though, at least in my experience, I have not. And that's really good because on something like the Tube Mini, I definitely could pick that up. So hopefully that clarifies that, and to give you kind of a example on the audio level side of things, if I were to stop talking right now, I've got the washer going in the background, whereas my filter is going to pick that out when I'm speaking to you guys. So there's kind of a good analogy to what this does. Now, if you go Class AB, just think of being more natural, not more natural, being more digital, I should say, because that's, you know, solid state. That's kind of what you're going to get here. Now, it is not an ESS Saber DAC on this. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Cirrus Logic DACs, in my experience anyway, tend to be a little bit warmer than, say, an ESS DAC is. So what that means is that it's still not going to be overly sharp and bright at the top end, but there's definitely sharper edges to your notes and to your listening. So if you want those pinpointed details and things like that, you're going to get more of that out of the Class AB mode with this than you're definitely going to get out of the Tube mode. Now, the one thing I will say, about this is you're gonna need to be careful on what you pair it up with when it comes to headphones. This is not for big boy headphones like hard to drive ZMF headphones, hard to drive planars, you know, a tungsten, something like that. No, it is not going to power those very well and give you a very good listening example for some of those things. But I would say in general, the majority of headphones and definitely the majority of IEMs that I've listened to, man, it is such a fun sound and such a good sound. And when I say fun, don't think that I mean that everything's rolled off and there's no details at all if you listen to analog. That is not true. There is still a good amount of detailing there in that analog mode, and I just can't speak enough on that, in case you couldn't tell. All right, guys, on the table in front of me here are a lot of headphones, a lot of IEMs, and two tube dongle DACs that I think we need to talk about comparing with the Nunchaku and the WooTube Mini. Now, the easiest comparison to give you guys would be price. The Nunchaku retails in at $299, the Tube Mini retails in at $499, and that is without the power base this is sitting on. If you get the power base bundled with it, it's $749, or if you get it separately, it's $799, almost 3 times the price of the Nunchaku. So that is going to be one of the biggest differences between these two is the price, not to mention the sound signature between these two as far as the sound flavor you're gonna get out of them. Very different between these two, in my opinion. And then also drivability, which is why I've got this table set up the way I do. If you have harder to drive headphones, things that are higher in impedance, a planar magnetic headphone like we see here, the Abyss Joel, the Otour Classic, the Atrium Close from ZMF, this all does really well with the Tube Mini. On this side of the table, we have got the Hi-Fi for All Dahlia, excellent headphone. We've got the ZMF Bokeh Open, also an excellent headphone. Both of these are pretty easy to drive. Both of these do very well with the Nunchaku. They also do well with the Tube Mini, to be fair. Then we have some IEM sitting here in front of me. This is the SIMGOT ET142. This is the The-Audio Hype 4. And this is one that you guys haven't heard of yet, but you will, because I'll have a video out very, very soon. And this is the Ear Acoustics. It's cute. It's not cute. The Ear Acoustics SPA Max. And guys, the SPA Max is pretty easy to drive. It's a standard, I think it's like 30 ohms, something like that. So is the The-Audio Hype 4. And then the ET142 is a little bit more sensitive. What I don't have in front of me on the table is the Forte Ears Macbeth that I had a video on and talked a lot about the fun pairing with the Nunchaku that I had with Macbeth. So, why am I saying this? The Nunchaku does such a damn nice job with IEMs and with headphones that are going to be fairly easy to drive and not too difficult. You're going to get such a fun analog sound. It's going to be warm. It's going to take off that top end. If you got something that's really, really spicy, think of the Grado 100 SE that I just did a review on, guys. That Grado was such a fun sound with an Nunchaku because it tamed that top end, gave it some thump in the low end. But I gotta say the Nunchaku comes up short with these headphones. I don't quite like the sound I get out of the Joel. It's okay, but I know I can get better. And with these two headphones, it just does not drive them appropriately, in my opinion, when it comes to these two. I gotta use high gain, I gotta turn it up really loud. That's okay if I'm getting the sound I want, and I just wasn't. Now, to give you an example, the Atrium Close, mid-range was a little bit relaxed, top end was a little spicy actually, and just didn't quite control the drivers of it as well. And I felt the same way with the Otour Classic, that it had that Otour Classic, natural type, neutral sound to it, but just didn't really flavor things up quite as much because it just can't drive it quite as well. And then with the Joel, like I said, this is a planar headphone. It's not a difficult to drive planar headphones, but planars are just different. And that's where the Tube Mini really shines, is when you give it something a little bit harder to drive, you can get that little extra bit of warmth out of the mid-range. It's not overly tubey, whereas I think this one is even more tubey, but it can really just have a nice synergy with some of the harder to drive headphones. Not a tungsten, not a Sysvara, not an HE6. Just to be clear, neither of these would be able to do those headphones, but it is what it is when it comes to that. And then also don't forget, with the Nunchaku, we've got the option to flip off the tube and go class AB and just use a normal solid state type sound, digital sound out of it. And you could just not do the tube analog thing at all, although it's still gonna kind of taper off that top end, which is nice. So versatility, gotta give it to the Nunchaku because it just can do so many different things. It just cannot drive things quite as well as the Tube Mini. Also versatility for the fact that you can pick this up, walk around with it. You're not gonna get a lot of interference out of it. It's not like the Tube Mini, where if you picked up and walked around with this, you wouldn't be able to do it. It would constantly be ringing. You need to put it on a desk like this. If you don't get the power base, you just lay it on the desk when you're listening to your headphones and you'll be fine. But it's not gonna be one that you're gonna be up and walking around with. And this really is an engineering marvel that they've been able to do this with an Nunchaku, and I'm very impressed by that. Now you might think, well, it's an easy decision. I'll just save all the money and get the Nunchaku. You gotta decide what you wanna drive and what kind of sound that you want as well, because there is a case for both of these to be in your arsenal if you wanted to. Audiophiles, I mean, that's what we do, right? So you can make a case for that. I can make a case for the Tube Mini because I love this synergy so much with this headphone, actually with the Bokeh Open too, and with both of these. So yeah, there's definitely some synergy advantages with the Tube Mini that you won't get with the Nunchaku, and vice versa here. So just know that with the Tube Mini, it's really not going to pair well with IEMs. There's a couple of cases where it has, but in my experience anyway, with what I've listened to with the Tube Mini, no. And that's where the Nunchaku really takes advantage for me, is with IEMs. So hopefully that helps you guys if you were curious about the comparisons between these two lovely tube dongle decks. I mean, they are lovely. Just look at them. So let me know in the comments down below your thoughts and opinions on the Tube Mini versus the Nunchaku, because I would really like to know. A lot of people are going to look at price instantly and just be like, no, I'm going with this. Or if you've had experience with the Tube Mini, again, I just want to know, guys, because I'm curious, because me personally, I like them both, but I get it. I understand both sides of the coin on that. So again, just let me know. And that's going to pretty much wrap up this video. If you can't tell, I absolutely love this device. iBasso, I got to thank you again for allowing me so much time with this. It has its place right next to my DC Elite, right next to my Tube Mini. I get a lot of different variations that I can get with this unit, and I absolutely highly recommend it, guys. I truly do, and I don't do that a lot on this channel, in case you haven't noticed. So with that, I want to thank all of you guys for watching this video today, and I will see you in the next one.